Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good morning. Some people are in a different time zone, more closer to Arizona. Welcome, everyone. Here in New York, it's snowing. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar. My name is Mary Hegarty. I am the network coordinator of the New York HSI STEM Hub. We're a network of 14 HSI designated Hispanic Serving Institution designated community colleges, and we're located in the southeast region of New York State. So we're Long Island, New York City area, and the lower Hudson Valley. So we are really pleased today to welcome you, and I want to introduce our webinar presenter, Dr. John Jagtiani. Welcome. Dr. Jagtiani is an established technology leader and an experienced educator. His professional experience includes 25 plus years of aligning technology initiatives to business strategy, management consulting, and project implementations. He currently serves as professor and department chair at Connecticut State Northwestern, where he's involved with developing and teaching undergraduate coursework in computing, technology, data science, and business across Connecticut State. Dr. Jagtiani has served on several statewide and national governance initiatives that guide and shape computing and technology education for future students and eventual industry adoption. His work as the Connecticut State Rep on the National Expanding Computing Education Pathways Initiative is helping define K-12 computer science education. Dr. Jagtiani also develops and teaches graduate courses at the University of Bridgeport, Fairfield University, and the University of New Haven. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Jagtiani. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Mary. It is indeed a pleasure to be able to facilitate this webinar. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name, again, is John Jagtiani. I'm a professor of computer science and data science at CT State Community College. I mostly teach at Northwestern campus, which is way up in northern Connecticut, up above Torrington, Connecticut. But I also teach in various other campuses as CT State merged all their campuses into one a couple of years ago. And so we are kind of one large system. Over the next hour or so, we are going to explore the practical and ethical implications of AI in STEM education, particularly at the community college level. So the goal here is not to make anyone an AI expert overnight, but rather to give us tangible ways to integrate AI responsibly in our teaching, help our students develop the skills they'll need in the modern workforce, and consider policies that support ethical and equitable use of AI. By the end of this session, you should have both a framework for understanding AI in education and some specific examples that you can try in your own courses. Now, we'll start off before we dive in with a quick disclaimer. The views I share today are my own. Please note that they're not official positions of my employer or any institution. This session is being recorded so you can revisit it later or share it with your colleagues. You're welcome to keep your camera on or off, whatever makes you comfortable. With that housekeeping out of the way, let's get into the rest of the webinar. So here's a sneak peek of what we're planning on covering today, kind of our roadmap. We'll start with a historical perspective on AI, then look at its relevance in STEM education. We'll explore learning science, adoption themes of AI, and real-world use cases. We'll also discuss some key considerations and policy information before wrapping up with a short discussion. So the goal is to keep the conversation simple and to the point, yet complete and somewhat insightful for everyone that's participating today. As an instructor, I've been involved in AI education, both in the classroom and through broader curriculum development initiatives. Today, I'm just going to share my perspectives as a faculty member who works with both students and fellow educators. We want to explore how AI can be used as a tool, a challenge, and it's also an opportunity in our STEM classrooms. So my hope is that this webinar will give you actionable strategies and insights, not just theory. I also hope I can gain some insights from you all, especially through the discussion portion of our conversation later this afternoon. So I don't profess to be an expert, and I know there are many people out there who are going to be listening either live or in a recorded fashion that probably know a lot more than I do. And the idea is to share knowledge and build a community so we can make impact with AI in STEM education. So the first thing I want to do is do a pulse check. Before we dive deeper, let's take a moment for an informal poll. I think this would be great for all of us to know a little bit about ourselves as a group and check out where we are with AI today. So this will help frame our discussion. So here's the first poll, which should show up on your screen. Maybe it doesn't yet. Let's see. Jose, can you see it on the screen?
I can see it. Just click on present for us, please.
Perfect.
I'm not seeing your QR code.
There we go. My fault. Still not working. Hold on. Activate. Oh, it's locked. Okay, here we go. Okay, there it is. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, that's good to know. The next question for our poll is your current use of AI. Okay, we got a nice even split between moderate and light use. A couple of people probably haven't used much of it, so they chose none. Good to know. And then the final question for our pulse check is one word that describes your biggest concern about AI in education. All righty. All right. Well, cheating is the top of the list. That would be a common concern for some of us educators. Again, thank you. I think we just got a quick pulse of who's here and how we kind of feel about AI so far. Let me shift gears back to my presentation. So, here's a real quick fun history of AI. I think it's a great place to start. Of course, we've been, ChatGPT got released, 3 years ago or so, a little bit over 3 years. Um, but we've been toying with AI all along. The scalability has been the issue. So AI, the term artificial intelligence was actually coined. Most of you might know this at Dartmouth back in the mid 50s. And we've had a lot of progress since then, and even before leading up to that point, with various innovations, various milestones that have been reached. But 3 years ago, generative AI came to the common household, so to speak. Every business, every individual has access to AI on pretty much every device, given the proliferation of the cloud. So I just wanted to highlight, it's interesting for me to think about AI this way, is that we're not new. We have been leading up to this point, and finally the hardware and software were able to work together in harmony to create some of the models and some of the capabilities that we're seeing. AI may feel like a modern innovation, but humans have imagined this kind of stuff for thousands of years. The Mahabharata described mechanical warriors whose power depended on wisdom of their operators. The Gilgamesh gave us Enkidu, an artificial rival crafted by the gods. Jewish folklore, imagine Golem, a being formed from clay. And of course, Pascal's calculating machine in 1642 marked the first step towards mechanicizing, I said that wrong, mechanicizing thought. These stories kind of remind me that technology has always been about extending human capability. But where we always need to focus on is the wisdom in its use and how we deploy it. So therefore, the concept of AI or an artificially intelligent being can be traced. So bottom line is we've been at this for a while. Our ingenuity is rooted in mankind and in our culture. And I think we are where we are today because that's exactly where we need to be, right? This is sort of not accidental. It's quite been in the works. So that's the point I'm trying to make, because a lot of folks got very surprised when they saw ChatGPT and some of these models. As we know today, AI is undetectable in many cases, especially in education. It's everywhere, it's ubiquitous, and it is transformative. Some of us might think, might be divided in terms of the positives and the negatives, but certainly it's transforming our lives. I think we can all pretty much agree to that. So, of course, education is at the sharp end of this adoption curve. 70% of students are using AI in undergrad and in K through 12 programs. AI in education, if you look at the economics of it, the market size is predicted to keep rising. You would have seen various studies. This is just an example of one research study or one result of a research study, but you'll see various numbers thrown out depending on what they're counting in AI in education or what they're not. But the charts all look the same. It's growing and it will continue to grow for the foreseeable future. Now, students have long felt overwhelmed by assignments. Those of us who are educators, we can feel that and we can get feedback from our students. And AI is often seen as either the savior or the villain in this story, right? I think the truth is that AI doesn't eliminate the need for learning. It changes the way we approach learning. Instead of fearing an apocalypse of homework and homework shortcuts, we should ask, how can AI help students engage more deeply to personalize their learning and reduce busy work so they can focus on understanding? Most of us are probably familiar with Bloom's taxonomy that dates back to the mid-50s. But Bloom's research contributions extended much further. In 1984, he discussed the two sigma problem. For those of you who don't know, this research showed that students who received one-on-one tutoring performed 2 standard deviations better than those in traditional classrooms. That's huge. This means that they achieve significantly higher learning outcomes. The change has always been scaling that kind of personalized support for our students. How can we scale to a one-on-one situation? Well, AI offers a way to bridge this gap, not by replacing teachers, I believe, but by providing adaptive, individualized guidance that helps every student reach potential. For me, this quote captures the essence of why AI matters in education. AI allows us to recognize different strengths and tailor learning experiences so students aren't judged by a single metric, but rather supported in ways that match their unique abilities. We did some research. We learned more about the VARC learning styles. So the VARC model highlights that students learn differently. I think we can all appreciate that if we're educators in the room in any capacity. Some students are visual, some are auditory, some prefer reading and writing, and others are kinesthetic. Traditional lectures often fail to meet these diverse needs of our students. So I believe AI can help by offering multimodal learning experiences. For example, interactive simulations, adaptive quizzes, or even personalized study guides. I think it's about meeting students where they are, not forcing them to a one-size-fits-all approach. And I think that's what the VARC model has shown us historically. And now we have a way to sort of implement it in a scalable fashion. Some more research on this. So we talk about traditional lecture-based teaching. Most of us are used to that. I don't know about many of my fellow educators, but I've stopped lecturing for more than 5 minutes. I usually have an activity or some sort of a challenge question, a poll, things of that sort. Traditional lecture-based teaching is sort of out, according to me. Lectures have been the backbone of education for centuries, but we know and research shows that they often overload students, especially after COVID. Imagine trying to drink from a fire hose, right? That's what a lecture can feel like to many of our students. Cognitive load theory explains why students struggle. Our brains can only juggle so much information before comprehension breaks down. AI can help by personalizing content. We can offer adaptive pacing for students, support different learning styles. So I don't think it's about replacing lectures, but engineering them for ways that human beings can actually learn in the future. AI makes this VARC model that we've been discussing practical. Imagine a student who learns best visually. AI can generate diagrams or simulations instantly. For auditory learners, it can provide podcasts or narrated explanations. Kinesthetic learners can engage with interactive problem-solving exercises. By aligning teaching methods with learning preferences, we can use AI as educators to help foster inclusivity and improve our student retention. Now, I have a 65-page PowerPoint today, but I'm only going to discuss the first 30 or so. The rest is going to be handed out to you with lots of examples that I've used personally and developed, sometimes with the help of some students, sometimes on my own. And I want to be able to use this format to share that with all of you and build a community. So you'll see lots of examples, how-to, that you can adapt some of this to your own courses. We'll go over a couple today if we have time, but you'll get at least 30 or so, maybe a little less than 30, 20 to 25 solid examples that are representative of the different things that I've done. And I'm sure many of you have done so much more. And hopefully you can highlight some of that, those successes or even challenges when we get to the discussion portion of this presentation. So let's look at this a little carefully now. Education and learning aren't the same. I think we often use it in the same way, but education is a structure to me. It's a curriculum, it's the policies, it's the institutions that deliver content. Learning, on the other hand, is the process, the curiosity, the engagement, the growth. AI challenges us to rethink this distinction, right? It can deliver knowledge efficiently, but the real question is, how do we ensure students are learning, not just consuming the information that we deliver? So knowledge matters, expertise matters, training matters, but learning matters the most. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon with AI. I think it's actually going to be underscored. The expertise paradox is fascinating to me, right? I was reading this somewhere. On one hand, deep expertise matters more than ever. On the other, AI can automate certain tasks, making expertise seem less necessary. So the paradox isn't resolved when we realize that expertise isn't obsolete. It's evolving. AI handles routine tasks, freeing humans to focus on creativity, judgment, and maybe innovation. Expertise shifts from memorization to interpretation. So I think if we keep these things in mind, we start to guide our use of AI in education and specifically in STEM education. Now, one thing we got to remember is a sobering thought that this is the worst AI we'll ever see. Whatever we are using now, whatever we know of, the pace of progress is staggering. What feels advanced today will look primitive in just a few years. I would argue maybe even by next week. You just don't know how much is changing because we have made rapid progress. So what does that mean for us? Well, for us educators, it means we must prepare our students, not just for today's tools, not just with today's technology, but for the future, where AI is going to be far more capable. The challenge isn't keeping up with technology, it's teaching adaptability. I think that's where we'll have an edge, right? So here's some recent changes. In the last 18 to 24 months in the AI space, you would have noticed a few things. We've seen leaps in natural language prompt capability, multimodal AI, and agentic systems. These are the buzzwords of today, just in the last, few months. AI is no longer just answering questions, just looking up things on the internet. It's integrating the capability that AI delivers into our workflows, reasoning abilities, and actually engaging in reasoning that's more reliable, less hallucinations, and also in supporting the creative process. The shift from chatbots to agents is imminent, it's profound, and education must adapt to this new reality. So, as Ethan Mollick says, I'll talk about Ethan Mollick a lot during the rest of my presentation because I follow him and I'll explain his contributions. But he said, with Gemini 3 that just came out not too long ago, 3 years from Chat GPT 3 to Gemini 3, right? From chatbots to agents. It's a remarkable difference of what you can do with some of these AI tools today versus just 3 years ago, right? And many of you have started using some of this stuff, so it's great. So how do we do this, right? Well, a lot of people ask me, I ask others, and what I've learned is these three things, right? There is no secret instruction manual. This is a try-by. You just keep doing, keep trying what works. Use your intellect to make sure you're on the right track and you're not shortcutting student learning in the process, that we're able to meet learning objectives of our courses and so on. So there's no secret manual. Working with AI is like teaching. I believe teachers like us, educators like us in any capacity are much more adaptable and can be much more adaptable to AI. We might resist it because of the cheating aspect or other things, but I think we are quick learners and we understand how to make our students or help facilitate our students to be quick learners. And we as instructors, as educators, know our environment. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and it's not the same for different course types. We use different techniques and different frameworks, like in STEM education versus in humanities and other areas. So we have to just use good judgment, right? And I think we can all do that. I have a lot of confidence. We've said this before. One size has never fit all in education. AI has made that very clear to us over and over again as we learn to use more of it. Personalized learning isn't a luxury. We don't have to feel like we can't personalize our learning outcomes, or not learning outcomes, but our learning approaches to students. We certainly can, and soon it's going to be an expectation. AI allows us to tailor instructions for individual needs, making education more inclusive and effective. I think we've always wanted that, and I feel like AI can help us with that if we use it in a prudent fashion. So we've got to design these systems, respect diversity, and avoid fragmenting our classroom experience. I think that's really important, and I work hard to do that. So critical literacy, critical literacy is essential. Students must learn. This is what AI can't do for them, very easily at least. Student must learn to frame problems, interpret the outputs, validate results, make ethical decisions. These are things that we gain by experiencing, much more than just looking up. AI can certainly generate answers. It can't guarantee that they're correct or fair. Teaching students to question AI, to ask why, how, and what assumptions underlie these outputs. This is key to responsible use, and it's especially important in STEM education, where there's a lot of analysis and a lot of technical information and application of technical information, right? So I think AI is very uniquely suited. Now, early on, AI used to fail a lot on just doing math problems. Things have gotten a lot better. I still think it's pretty weak on just plain old math, but it's certainly a lot better in the last 3 years. But certainly applying some of those concepts, I think it's stellar for using that, let's say using an interactive physics tutor or something like that, certainly will help our students gain much more understanding of the pretty difficult concepts that we're faced in teaching them. So how do you become a better critical thinker? We talk about critical thinking being important. We talked about AI not being able to do that for you very easily, right? And this is where we need to focus on. Well, Adam Grant, I love reading his podcast. I'm sure many of you follow his stuff. He's an organizational psychologist out of UPenn. His advice is very powerful. Be skeptical of people you agree with, charitable to those you don't, and look for flaws in ideas that you like, right? We have to teach ourselves to do this, remind ourselves, and also remind our students to have that spirit of inquiry, spirit of questioning. So when we apply this to AI, this means teaching students to challenge outputs rather than just accepting them. Sometimes almost always the outputs look great, but they may not be great. They may not be accurate. So students need some help and guidance to help them consider different perspectives, which they might just seemingly dismiss. I think it's about cultivating humility and curiosity in the face of very complex environments, right? And complex subject matters. Why does AI matter in STEM? Well, AI is transforming every industry, and every STEM field are at the forefront. Employers increasingly are expecting AI literacy, not as a bonus skill, but as a baseline. Community colleges, such as the one I work for, and universities are key pipelines for the workforce development. And we have to understand that integrating AI into STEM education will help ensure students graduate ready for the demands of the modern careers, right? So expectations are changing. AI is a literacy, a core skill like reading or math. Just as digital literacy became essential, AI literacy is becoming non-negotiable at this point. It is not about knowing every algorithm, but about understanding how to use AI responsibly, interpret its output, and integrate it into problem solving, right? It is a necessary thing for all of our students. AI is already embedded in various STEM practices. For example, in healthcare, it supports diagnostics and engineering. It powers CAD simulations. In computer science, it generates and debugs codes. I don't know about many of my fellow computer science teachers out there, but computer science has changed overnight. We can't just give our students coding assignments like we used to, right? But we can still teach them a lot about understanding code, interpreting code, using code, designing code, and so on, right? So, but AI can help generate a lot of code and also help us debug code. In data science, it drives analysis and visualization. These aren't futuristic scenarios, guys. This is here. This is happening now. The question is how we prepare our students to work with these tools, right? There are risks. AI brings risks. We know that. We feel it. Academic integrity, for example, also known as cheating, black box decision making, the biases that are inherent in some of these learning models, privacy concerns, and then, of course, the over-reliance and over-dependence on AI. These, though, are not the reasons to avoid AI. They're the reasons to teach it better, I believe. If we help students navigate these challenges thoughtfully, we're not just protecting education, we're preparing them for the world they'll be entering. And that's, I think, what our mission is at the community college level. So, institutions need to step back and ask, what do we want students to achieve in an AI-rich environment? It's not enough to bolt AI onto existing curricula. We need to rethink outcomes. We're teaching students to memorize, or are we teaching students to reason? Let's ask ourselves that, right, over and over again until we're convinced. To follow instructions or critique outputs, let's ask ourselves that, okay? Once those outcomes are clear, policies have to follow. This means setting guidelines for disclosure of use of AI, validation, ethical use of AI. The process of learning just becomes as important as the product. Let me repeat that. The process of learning becomes just as important as the product. And AI forces us to make that distinction explicit. So reevaluate your student learning outcomes and decide on the process of learning in your courses, okay? And then couple it with policies to suit, right? That's the big message here. Think of AI as a teaching partner, not a replacement. It can help you plan lessons. I use this all the time for lesson planning. I create my syllabi with it. I double check and edit my, proofread my syllabi with it to make sure I've captured everything. I can have my syllabi be compared to the textbook that I'm using to make sure I've covered the basis for the chapters that I wish to cover, especially when I'm changing a book in a class. I mean, these are things that used to take me hours and days. I know I have to do them. I'm going to use AI to make my job easier. That's just an example. You know, AI can stimulate workflows to give students hands-on practice, but we as the educator are always in the driver's seat. Let's not step away from being in the driver's seat with education. AI can accelerate tasks, but it cannot replace human judgment. It cannot successfully demonstrate empathy, even though some of the AI models appear to have a more empathetic tone. Don't be fooled, right? And you know, so we are the creative engines that will drive AI in education, not the other way around. And we need to live by that, right, in the work that we do every day. So the partnership works best when AI handles repetitive tasks and teachers focus on inspiring and guiding students. That's, I think, the takeaway. So for students, AI can be a tutor, a brainstorming partner, a debugging assistance. It can help generate hypotheses, analyze data, provide feedback. But I think the real value is not in the answers AI gives our students, gives us. It's in the questions that it provokes, right? So when I see an output, I'm sure some of you have felt this way. If you're, you know, not rushed through whatever task you're doing, you get this output and you ask AI a question, it gives you some output, you look at it and it prompts 3 other things that you didn't think of before. I think that's incredibly powerful in a world where most of us are distracted. It actually helps us regain focus if you use it that way. So when students use AI to draft code and analyze data, they also have to learn to critique, refine, and validate by the same nature as I was talking about the use of AI that I do. That's where the learning happens. That's where the inquiry happens. So AI can accelerate this process, but students still need to do their own reasoning. I think that's what we need to facilitate. Policies are essential, right? You know, a lot of schools, a lot of institutions are still a little loosey-goosey because we're all learning about it. But that doesn't mean that we as educators can't leverage what our institutions or are providing us. I know our institutions are supporting AI. They may not just be as advanced as people actually in the classroom teaching the students, right? So we have to bring everybody along. We have to bring each other along for the ride. So policies are essential to keep AI use constructive. So a good starting point is disclosure. Students should disclose and be transparent about when and how they're using AI. Position AI as a partner, not a replacement. We discussed that before. Encouraging reflection, right? What did AI do for you? What did you do to enable AI? How did you validate what AI is giving you? These are questions I ask in some of my assignments, right? I have them use AI. I never discourage. I encourage responsible use, and I don't punish my students for experimenting with AI. I, in fact, might reward them with an extra credit assignment, or when I give them feedback, I'll ask them these 3 questions when I see the use of AI. What did AI do? What did you do? And how did you validate? Let's look at some practical examples in STEM, right? Here are some things, and by the way, I gathered these examples by talking to some of my colleagues. I've gone to several AI-related conferences and education-related conferences, both internally to CT State and also nationally. And one of the things, because I'm such an AI junkie, I ask around how people are using AI in various disciplines. And this is sort of, I just wanted to share this with all of us. So, right, so some practical examples of how some of our colleagues are using AI. In computer science, students are using AI to co-pilot and generate code, debug, and then improving the code, maybe modifying the code. I actually do that myself. I have them write the code using AI, and then I tell them, well, how would you do this to the code, and have them talk about it in more of an essay format, right? And which is very different. We never had people write an essay about code before, right? Or a discussion prompt about a piece of code. So that encourages different ways of thinking. In engineering, AI-driven simulations are very common now. You know, these simulations can test materials, model performance, sparking comparisons between human and machine logic. In biology and healthcare, AI-assisted imaging can highlight risks and failures for discussion. In math, AI can generate solutions, but students must still explain the reasoning and the alternatives, right? Because sometimes there's many ways to solve that math problem. In data science, AI can clean and visualize data. It can create test data. It can do a lot of the repetitive tasks that take a long time or are cumbersome, but probably don't have too much learning involved in them. But students should still be able to provide and critique the assumptions that are being used. So across disciplines, the goal is the same: judgment, not blind acceptance, right? And I think there's various colleagues of ours using AI this way in education and in higher ed, particularly in STEM. So there's no shortage of tools, right? This isn't going to be like, what are the best tools? Well, the best tools today may not be the best tools tomorrow. I mean, Gemini 3 just came out, blew everybody away, and now we're waiting for the next thing to blow Gemini away, right? And the story keeps continuing. So there's no shortage of tools: Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Copilot, so on and so forth, right? Each of these tools have their strengths, from generating rubrics and quizzes to creating slides or visualizations, right? The challenge isn't finding the tools, it's choosing them wisely, integrating them thoughtfully in your coursework. Whether you're preparing your coursework or you're generating an assessment or whatever, tools should serve as a pedagogy, not dictate it. They should serve the pedagogy that we're establishing. They should not dictate how we teach these courses. So the best use of AI is when it amplifies teaching goals rather than distracting away from them. So just please keep that in mind. I remind myself of that daily when I use AI, because sometimes I get up, I'm stretched for time, and I'm like, oh, AI is going to do this for me. And then I start getting into it and I say, that's not the direction we're going in, because I can see the results veering away from what I really want to do with my students. Okay, so what can institutions do to support us? Well, lots of things. And I'm sure every institution out there is addressing AI in some basic or advanced fashion, right? At our place at CT State, a year and a half ago, we started the president of our college started a fellowship and got everybody involved, a large cohort from every group, department, faculty, staff, etc. And we immersed ourselves with AI tools, how to use them in various aspects of the education process. We can do webinars like this to spread the word, to share workshops. I know in CT State we're doing a workshop with about 80 faculty members in January that I'm excited about. We could do mini projects. Lots of institutions doing micro-credentialing, setting up Blackboard courses to give a quick start for some AI literacy at every level of the organization. We're doing some institutions can do faculty training, provide some support guidelines. Of course, industry partnerships are clear. I think a lot of us need to do more of that, and they're harder to run and establish and run, but they're incredibly important because we want to learn from the industry, and we want industry to learn from us because they're going to see our future students, right? And there should be a very tight partnership, in building our workforce, right? So, and of course, we have to address access gaps. Not all our students have access to all of the computing power, the devices, and other aspects of technology. So we want to make sure that if there are, we want to be inclusive. Let's just put it that way, right? We want to be inclusive with our students. So I think it's super important to keep those things in mind. We need to continue to share, innovate, and apply. I think the reason I am so pleased that the Hub offered me this opportunity to do the webinar with all of us is it's because it's my way of sharing what I think and I've done, and also building a community together, right? We should stay connected. We should share what we're learning from each other, innovate and apply. I think we do a lot of it, but we don't do enough of it. So a couple of resources. I mean, there's so much resources on AI. And again, there is no manual on how to do things one way. But these three things that I'm showing you on the screen really have helped me over the last couple of years, okay? Sal Khan's book about how AI will revolutionize education. He wrote that a couple of years ago when generative AI was fairly just coming out. But some of his thoughts and some of his ideas and his predictions are coming true, and they're insightful. They're insightful to learn from. Then Ethan Mollick, who's a AI-focused faculty member at UPenn, he has written a book, Co-Intelligence. He doesn't describe AI as artificial intelligence. He describes AI as co-intelligence, living and working with AI. So the book is great, but he also has two websites, one useful think and then more useful things. And he constantly provides examples, different ways of prompting AI. I mean, there's so much content on those two links. It's incredible, right? And then of course he has other references there as well. So I highly recommend following Ethan Mollick if you want to stay connected with the latest and greatest on AI and education. And of course, teaching with AI. We did a reading club on this in our campus. It went really well last year. A very short book on a practical guide on integrating AI with education. So these three resources, amongst many, many other YouTube videos and things that are out there, I think hit the spot. So I think it's important. And then a few final thoughts before we open it up to some examples and then a discussion, because I do want to go over one or two examples really quickly. It's wise to extend transparency as you advance your AI adoption, right? Students and institutions should be open about how AI is used. Spending too much time on AI detection is a distraction. Let's focus instead on teaching process over product, right? We've traditionally been focused on creating products, getting the right answer, showing me the solution, etc. Let's focus a lot more on the process and a little less on the product. And historically, we haven't done that enough. And now we almost have to. So I think we have to, just adapt to, how AI can help us. So AI challenges us to shift to this process-driven learning and how students think, how they validate, how they can grow. And I think that's the real opportunity AI brings to STEM education. Now, in the next couple of minutes, you'll see that I have a bunch of slides. I'm just going to show you what you're in. You're going to get this. If you registered for this, everybody's going to get a PDF of this with the links enabled. And you're going to get a recording of the session in case you missed some of it or even all of it. Some of you registered, weren't able to make it, etc. I have a few of my favorite sample use cases. For example, a textbook tutor chatbot, a Taylor assessment generator, an adaptive learning portal, a role play scripter, a technical simulator. These are things that actually work. I've gotten them to work. Here's an interactive tailored tutor, for example, where AI can help replace a one-size-fit-all worksheet that we normally would give as students to targeted practice to help every type of student improve faster. So this is a chem example that generates problems based on the student level. It gives you personalized problem sets. It makes it function as a chatbot, giving you step-by-step, giving your students step-by-step feedback and tracking mistakes. Very great compliment, very nice compliment. And all it took was this prompt on the screen to generate an interactive tutor. Let me see if I can click on the link to actually show you what it looks like. Yep, it will work. Good. So for those of you who can see, hopefully you can see, that's what this prompt on the screen that I showed you did. It generated a standalone HTML tutor that I actually deployed on my own site. And now I can roll this out to a student if I was teaching AI, using AI and reactive predictions, right? So you can generate a problem, you can show steps, then you can reveal answer, and you can also, for example, VARC, you can create a visual or auditory lesson on this, etc. All the things that we discussed put together in one very easy prompt, right? So I think, and then I have tons of other examples. I have a textbook tutor. This is for my data structures class. This was for a data structures book I once used for a class. I created an interactive walkthrough of the textbook just by using this prompt. And it gave me a whole, and I have the links here. So I'm not going to, in the interest of time, I'm not going to show you every link, but there's quite a few links here with the examples and the working samples of it. And then I have even more, 15 other examples and use cases on how you can use AI to do different things, from creating simulations to summarizing a research paper, which is pretty easy at this point, to creating your syllabus, to even drafting a sample AI policy that you might want to use in class. So tons and tons of stuff here with screenshots and things that I've done personally, and some of things that have been done by some of my colleagues that I kind of tied together in this slide deck. So with that, I am going to ask that we move into our discussion section. I thank you for listening to this afternoon's presentation. Here's the QR code to connect with me on LinkedIn. I think we should all stay connected as a community and share, either using social media or just emails or whatever, however we want to stay connected. So with that, I want to open up to the discussion portion for today. Please share things that you might have done that are noteworthy, that we might all benefit from, or some of us benefit from. And if you have specific questions on what we discussed, that's fair game as well. But let's have a quick discussion with the remaining time. Thank you. Jose, I expect the mics have been open.
The chat is open. The microphones are open. If you want to raise your hand, I'll gladly ping you and you can have a quick discussion with John. A lot of applause coming through.
Yeah, anybody want to share an example that they might not have seen or they're very proud of? That I think people love that. Like we must have done something that you found very helpful with AI, either in the classroom or in the educational environment, particularly with STEM. Everybody's being real shy. Okay, how about
Get,
questions?
have
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Hi, my name is John Michelle Compagnon. I teach chemistry at Dutchess. I appreciated your example there on stoichiometry because I was just gonna like I had questions on how does this apply to chemistry. For like my Gen Chem 1 and Gen Chem 2 classes, I end up with these long calculations, and I'm just kind of honing in onto that statement that you made to just overall to focus on your process and less on the product. And I'm trying to understand how that works with just chemistry teaching, like with these long calculations that I guess traditionally I felt obligated to teach because I felt that was where the understanding was. And if I'm just kind of again I'm just trying to wrap my head around like how the terms you're using fits into I guess the modalities of how things been done and where we go in the future. So if I got this long calculation, is the process the algebra and the product the final answer? Because I kind of wonder, like, I've been having to do just pencil and paper because I feel like that's where the learning happens, and that I have never really focused on the product because we have partial credit. So let's say it's a 15-point problem. If they show the work, that is the process, and I'm less worried about the final answer than their comprehension. And like the pencil and paper part, like they get rewarded for that. And so like I saw that model that you posted there for that example, and like I think that's like a useful like homework tool, maybe like for the individual pieces, the individual parts of the process. But am I thinking about it the right way? Is what I'm saying fitting in with what you're talking and advocating for?
Yeah, so I'm a computer science instructor. I know I'll admit I didn't do very well in chemistry in school, but I do understand your point, and your point is very applicable to other STEM classes. Um, what occurs to me based on what you said is, I don't think we would want to shortcut the math. They still need to understand the calculations to get to the final answer. But maybe we add more of interpretive type of questions. Why are we doing it this way? What do you think the benefit is? Explain to me what this step is, why the step is necessary, rather than just regurgitating those calculations. I can just parallel, and of course, the example I showed, again, there's so many examples. It's an endless smorgasbord of stuff. But what I'll encourage you to do is take a look at some of the other examples, even the non-chem examples that I have. You might be able to, the way I do this is I look at some examples that have nothing to do with what I'm doing, and then I adapt what I think I want to do with those examples, right? And then over time, I make it better. And I would advise the same way for all of us. You just take each other's examples, no matter what the discipline is, and start to create that. For example, maybe in your case, you might want to show the reactions with a simulation rather than a tutor. I showed you a tutor example just as an example, but maybe what's more helpful is teaching it the way you do, and then having AI help create a simulation so the students can actually see how those calculations come to life, if you will, on a screen using, and maybe that will reinforce learning a little bit. It's a hard battle. I mean, we are so used to doing things a certain way, like as educators, and we almost can't understand. I get paralyzed as to how I'm going to change, because I've been doing it fundamentally a certain way, and I always sold myself on the way that this is what the students need to learn, but maybe they don't. I mean, maybe they don't need to learn all of those calculations. Maybe they need to learn more applied stuff. Those are decisions we're going to have to make. I do know that there's probably some online groups with chemistry educators getting together and collaborating, and sharing ideas very specific to your discipline. So that's another thing I could encourage to latch onto. Okay.
And Can I
Yeah,
just
go
start
ahead.
one last thing too? I guess you're kind of touching upon like my worry was like the student going, why should I have to learn this long calculation if AI can do it? You know, calculators we were afraid of calculators at one point. Now we use them in the classroom, and I guess like part of the thing that you're advocating for is to be a critical thinker and to validate the process. And I guess what I was kind of thinking is if we're going toward not having to do these long calculations, how do they learn attention to detail and critical thinking if they don't go through the process and understand the process?
Yeah, it's who knows? Maybe we don't
Yeah.
need that much detail in the future, right? Like
Yeah.
we have to think, we're always thinking that we need a certain level of detail. Like, for example, the
Hmm.
math example, right? Um, do we all need to know all of the complex math and how to do it anymore, right? To be functional as an engineer, for example. I don't know. These are questions that are difficult to answer, and we might have different answers, and we may not agree. But our perspectives will change every time AI comes up with new things. For example, now with Gemini 3, advanced reasoning, right? I was trying to do some AI the other day and it was actually self-correcting itself. Before I used to put a prompt in and say, oh, this is not right. And AI would say, wait a minute, don't respond yet. I'm going to correct myself. And it keeps reasoning with itself. And it actually got to the place I wanted to go to much further than it would have just a year ago. So our opinions and our perspectives are going to change as we see more magic happen. The point here is we're going to see magic happen, and we got to deal with it together. Yeah, I see some other. We have career focus. Adrian, you want to? Did you want
Yeah,
to say anything?
yeah,
Please.
just to state it briefly. So our students are graduating soon. They have preparing for their careers. And so what does AI look like in the workforce? What are companies and different agencies asking of our students? What are the kind of things that we can prepare them so that once they step into the workforce, they're going to be exposed to all these AI expectations?
That's a great question. I'll answer it the best I know, which is very limited. I will admit. We are. I'm from the industry, so I do a lot of consulting with industry in addition to my teaching. So I have a little bit of a perspective in terms of what they're looking for. What I can say is AI. There's a big buzz in industry in almost every industry about AI. They're scrambling. They know that they want students that are AI versed and they're able to integrate AI with those job functions. But right now, the industry isn't fully returning results. And from a stockholder perspective, right? You'll see that on the news. Is AI a big bubble? Is it going to reach the promise that it's describing? So industry is scrambling because of the investments that they're making. But yet they want our students to be very AI conversant. Um, they want a little bit of everything. I've always, one of the things I struggled as a hiring manager is when we used to put job descriptions, and some of you who've worked in industry not too long ago will appreciate every job description is like a little crappy, pardon the expression, because they want one guy to do everything, right? Like it's like not even possible to have all of those skills into one. And I think AI just has expanded that further. What can we do in a very rapidly changing environment? Teach the things that we talked about this afternoon, right? Teach critical thinking, teach how to use AI responsibly, teach ethics. I know I teach a computer and AI ethics course, which I enjoy teaching, and the students give great reviews because they think that they actually see the value of that. Um, and in STEM particularly, how do we let's use AI to teach to make STEM education more accessible to our communities, right? Because a lot of times there'll be people who will say, I just can't be an engineer. I don't have the skills. I don't know. It's too hard. Maybe we can help them with some AI capabilities to augment their learning so that they build confidence and are able to one day dream of, or, realize their dream of becoming an engineer, for example. So that's the way I've been viewing it in my little world. And I know there's not one right answer, Adrian.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Can I ask my question?
Sure, of course.
Yes.
Please announce yourself.
Joseph Okogun is the name. I want to thank you for this, I would say, explosive information on AI. When you say you teach ethics in AI, what are you really talking about? What do you teach them in ethics?
Okay. So I used to teach, I've taught computer ethics for about 10 years. The course was called Computer Ethics. And then when AI, after 1 year of generative AI, so probably about 2 years ago, I kind of changed the way I teach that course and made a lot more of it relevant to the AI world. So we teach things like, what is the regulation around AI? What might be needed, and that's not there, both nationally and internationally. What are some acceptable and non-acceptable uses of AI in industry? Let's go examine how healthcare is using AI. Let's examine privacy concerns. Let's examine the digital divide, the fact that we all don't have equal access to the internet around the world, right? How do these learning models get developed, and how do they introduce bias into this learning model? So recognizing bias, recognizing privacy issues. I mean, there's a 15-week, very tight curriculum around that. And I know that my college isn't the only college that has a course like this. There are other colleges that are developing them and having the courses like that. But it's been very useful. And I'm encouraging now. It used to be it's a required course for our computer information systems degree, associate's degree, but I'm starting to recommend through our advising system that people of every discipline take that course as an elective at least, right? Because it actually doesn't have too many prerequisites. It's not a programming course or anything like that. It's pretty straightforward, and we start to have students think about these issues that AI is bringing to the forefront, right? And I do a lot of case studies in that class, and I do a lot of discussion posts because I teach it online. So yeah, I'm so pleasantly surprised that what students have to say. I mean, they're remarkable. I mean, they're so astute when you ask them the right questions. They're so astute in responding and relating it to their personal life, and I've enjoyed. I think I will admit on tape here that it's probably one of my top favorite courses to teach, just because of the incredible student interaction I'm able to derive without pushing them too much. I mean, I can't stop having them write things, and I know it's not. I know they use AI, but I know that a lot of it is theirs because I asked for personal reflection items, right? Tell me about an ethical situation that you encountered this week using technology. And all 30 students say something that I'm, very happy to read and respond to. Thank you for your question, Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you.
John, I just wanted to point everyone to the chat. I have put in a link for feedback to take a survey, a very brief survey. We would appreciate your feedback. And I want to thank everyone for attending. And John, I want to thank you. And I will be sending out the packet that John referenced, as well as the recording. So I just want to thank you again. Is there any parting words, John, that you'd like to share?
I am just so delighted and grateful to be able to share. We're sitting all over the country and we're sharing ideas, thoughts, experiences, examples on AI in education. I encourage all of us to do the similar thing. Any one of you can run one of these webinars. I am confident. You just have to wrap your hands around it, and it's in the spirit of sharing that I do it. And I'm very grateful, Mary, and to Dean Jane and others at SUNY Westchester to give me this opportunity. And I hope to stay connected with some or all of you on the internet and share more examples. So thank you for everyone's time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.